I'm Michael Santos with Prison Professors, and today I'm enthusiastic about introducing you to Govan, an individual who reached out to me. I don't know if you reached out to me through LinkedIn or through an email, but I'm super excited to talk with you for a number of reasons that will reveal themselves out through this program. So why don't we start? You were going to tell me about your name and the way that some people mispronounce it. So tell me what you were going to say off camera so everybody can hear it.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Govan. Most people say Govan, but more importantly, I was named after Govan Archibald Vinyawa Mbeki, who is Nelson Mandela's oldest co-defendant. Govan Archibald Vinyawa Mbeki spent 23 years in prison, and when he got out, he paved the way till Nelson Mandela's presidency. So my father named me after that esteemed gentleman.
That's a very good person to be named after.
Yeah.
And what was it that prompted you to reach out to me? I take it, it's my understanding was you spent a considerable amount of time in prison as well.
Absolutely. Michael, when I went to a school of thought, because I use different verbiage, I don't use prison because that wasn't my experience. I was in college for 26 years. But anyway, I think, spent about 26 years in prison too, right?
9,500 days, 26 years exactly.
Okay. So when I came to prison in the early 90s, a lot of talk was giving your way because a lot of people in the FBOP knew Michael Santos because I think you wrote a book.
I wrote a lot of books.
That first one, I think it was entitled, it was just like about your experiences in prison.
Okay, there's quite a few of them, so I don't know which one you might say is the first one. The most popular one is Inside Life Behind Bars in America.
That's the one. And so what regularly started to happen was I would hear your name as an example to look up to. Like, this guy was in prison for 26 years. He went home and he did exactly what he said he was going to do and then some. So I started to I started to try to find out if I could connect with guys who knew you so I could find out what was your secret recipe to success. I never really found it in the way you did it, but as soon as I got home, the first thing that I wanted to do was get in contact with you and tell you how much I appreciate what you've been doing since you left a school of thought.
Well, it's certainly an ongoing.
You're legendary in the FBOP, though, Michael. If you don't know that, to this day, you're still legendary.
Where did you serve your time, Govan?
I served my time in Terre Haute.
The USP?
Yeah, USP. Pekin Medium, Milan Low, and MCC Chicago.
So interesting. So you were in Terre Haute during what year?
2003.
Okay, so these guys I knew were already gone. What year were you in Pekin?
I was in Pekin from 94 to 2003.
Did you know Paul and Dan Robinson?
No, I didn't know them.
From St. Louis?
No, doesn't ring a bell.
Pardon? Doesn't ring a bell? There were two white guys, but they were from St. Louis. They used to be with me in the penitentiary, and they transitioned there around that same time. So
really?
I would have thought, they're kind of heavy guys. They look kind of Italian, kind of flamboyant, but a long time ago, your memories get faded.
Exactly.
Govan, I'm really grateful that you called me. Do you know what I'm doing now?
I think what I understood from when I looked you up, a lot of re-entry. I think you're going back inside the institutions and trying to make it more conducive towards development for the self.
Well, I mean, that is an area that I'm very passionate about, is trying to bring more information inside of jails and prisons so that people learn how to think differently and figure out what can I do today to begin positioning myself for success in the months, years, decades ahead, whether I'm in jail or prison or whether I'm home. I'm a big believer in mindset and figuring out what can I do and not complaining about, what's happened to me. And it's funny that you said that you're named after one of Nelson Mandela's co-defendant. he was obviously one of the people that really inspired me at the start of my journey. And I've written a lot about that because I could identify with him. He had a long sentence just like I had, and it sounds like just like you had. And it also sounds like one of the reasons that you were interested in communicating with me is because I served a long time in prison. So I really believe a person like you has enormous credibility with anybody that's going into the system, because you've done it and you managed to get through it with your dignity intact and with a mindset that says, I'm going to become successful. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was that brought you into the prison system and what motivated you and drove you during the 26 years that you served?
Okay. I was pretty successful prior to my incarceration.
How old were you when you went in?
I was 25.
And what kind of work did you do prior to going in that was not illegal?
I was working in a refinishing department at a multi-million-dollar trucking company.
Okay.
A full-time employee.
And what was it then that led you from that role into a challenge that brought the government to you to the attention of the government?
Funny you asked that. It's so amazing to see what's happening in our country today. Because back in the early 90s, late 80s, I got swept up in the zeitgeist of police brutality. I was being bullied at work. I was being profiled in the streets. And I had an incident at my job where a white gentleman threw a noose around my neck. And I snapped. And they broke us apart because we got to fighting. This is at a Fortune 500 company, we fighting. I ran up to the cafeteria and called my wife at the time and told her to come get me. My intentions was to go postal, but she kind of like calmed me down, and I went into a severe depression for a month. I had bills, I had responsibilities to take care of, but I couldn't get out of bed. I had a nervous breakdown, but it was undiagnosed. And during that time of depression, I decided that I would get back at the system by desecrating on their most sacred institutions, which is the banking system. And so from that thought, never been arrested, never been in trouble before leading up to none of this, I went and purchased a ski mask. I had the weapons already, and I began to rob banks for a living. And I was living a double life because a lot of people still thought that I worked at that multi-million-dollar trucking company until I finally was apprehended in 1993.
So you said you were given a double life sentence, and yet you're here talking with me now, which is incredibly inspiring.
No, I mean I was living a double life.
Oh, I see.
Because people still thought I was working at the company, but in all actuality, I had left that job and I was actually robbing banks for a living.
So you were 25 years old when you started, and how long did it take until you got caught?
Well, I was actually 23 when I started, and I got caught when I was 25.
And how many banks did you get convicted of robbing?
2.
And what was the sentence they imposed?
30 years and 11 months.
Under obviously the new law, so you did every day of that.
Yes, I did.
And you started inside of a high security penitentiary, but you'd never been in prison before.
Never.
I'll tell you one thing, Govan, that's really encouraging me to hear you talk. I don't know if you look at many of the YouTube channels on my channel is really not for consumers, but a lot of people are very successful on YouTube channels, but they give this sensationalistic image of prison where it's all about shot callers and gangs and things of that sort. And of course, my objective is very different. It's to see guys like you come home that have a really strong mindset and want to be successful. And I want guys like you to help me give that message to people inside, because I think that you can have a lot of credibility. You have a lot of credibility with me because you've done it, but I can sit here and look at you now, and you reached out to me, which is a sign that I think other people can listen and learn from. I can listen and learn from. As we said at the beginning, there's nothing you cannot ask me about my journey, not only through prison, but also about what I've been doing since I've come home and the businesses that I build. This is something more of a work of passion rather than a monetizing type of business.
Right.
But I'm interested in hearing about you. What was your mindset when you went into a high security penitentiary? I know a lot of guys that were at Terre Haute because that was one of the old penitentiaries. It was there were only about 6 or 7 of them when I started in 1987. And I know it's a medium now,
Right.
but you were there when it was a rockin' penitentiary.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about your experiences there and what your mindset was when you started serving a 30-year sentence.
Well, I was in Terre Haute just for transit. So I didn't really get the real penitentiary vibe in Terre Haute. But what I will say, Mike, is Pekin was a disciplinary joint. It was a medium high. So it was close to a penitentiary, but it wasn't quite a penitentiary. So my experiences when I first got incarcerated were at Pekin, Illinois, and it was different. I mean, it was tough because I wasn't hooked up with nobody. I wasn't a gang member. I was from a small town outside of Detroit, so I didn't really have no real connections, and so I had to figure things out on the fly because at that time the mentality was like being in the jungle. Only the strong will survive, and if you're weak, you're gonna get preyed upon. So you have to find a way to survive. Now, my way of surviving was easy because back then, Michael, as you know, prison was political. I mean, you couldn't come on a compound if your paperwork wasn't right. Or if you snitched. If you snitched on somebody, it was going to be hard for you to get on the compound back in the early 90s. I was able to go anywhere because I wasn't a snitch. And a lot of the guys that were in my environment respect what I did. They really respect the fact that I had enough kahunas to go into those institutions and take that money. And I had a shootout with the police too, Michael, in Rockford, Illinois in 93. That's how I was apprehended. I was almost killed. Luckily, I was saved on the operating table by a doctor, but that is what culminated my criminal career. But going back to being in prison for the first time, a medium high, nothing can prepare you for that. I mean, you have to have the type of intestinal fortitude that will carry a person through a war experience in Vietnam. I mean, it's just a totally different experience that people are not prepared for initially.
And so what activities kept you busy when you started?
Well, I was mad at first. The first thing I had to do, because I was angry at the system for giving me all that time. I felt like up until that point, I had lived a pretty much a stellar life. I mean, I had it all. And so I was angry when I first came down, Michael. And in order for me to keep my cool, I ran straight to the weight pile. I started getting my body in shape because I was a little guy. I was only 160 pounds. I wanted to get stronger. I wanted to protect myself. So my first activities were lifting weights, just staying in shape because it helped me cleanse my mind. It was therapeutic to work out back then for me.
And did that stay the case throughout the 26 years you served?
Absolutely. It is one of the best things that happened to me when I went to one of my school of thoughts was learning how to take care of myself. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I went to college. My major was robotics engineering, and I didn't know how to take care of myself until I went to my school of thought. And once I started working out and dealing with other guys who were more advanced than me and picking up on some of the wisdom that they were giving me, I was in a school of thought and I felt better there than I did when I was in the outside world because I was healthier.
And so did you do anything else that you were in there besides working out? Any other activities that you can talk with us about?
Absolutely. Reading really elevated me to a level that to this day, a lot of guys pay homage to. A lot of my buddies that I met in that school of thought to this day always compliment me on how diligent I was in my studying because I was a voracious reader, always have been. And so I would spend so much time trying to figure out what happened to me through books because I had a perfect life and I allowed myself to make a bad decision. And I had to figure out what was driving that decision, what was underneath what I perceived to be this racism that drove me to commit the crimes that I did. So reading gave me a sense of confidence and development that a so-called prison could never take.
And so tell us about when you got out of prison.
I got out August 19th of last year. A lot has been going on since then. We got the COVID, we got all the social unrest that's going on. But let me tell you something, Michael. The 26 years of self-development has prepared me for my reentry. People cannot believe, the people who I do tell that I was locked away for all that time, they can't believe it. They just don't accept it, just can't see it. That's because I was put in a position that allowed me an opportunity to develop my inner potential. And that is what a real education consists of. And that's why, Michael, it's been so easy for me since I've re-entered.
So tell me about, you released in August of 19. Mm-hmm. Tell me what was going through your head in August of 18 as you approached the last year of confinement. You've crossed the quarter century burden. You're coming into the final stretch, and you knew it was the final stretch. What thoughts did you have with regard to being both enthusiastic or fearful, or what kind of resources did you have? Walk us through that.
I was so enthusiastic about the possibility of finally being free. All I had heard up until that point was, you're going to see how hard it is when you go home. It ain't like it used to be. And in my mind, I was saying to myself, I am so developed. I can't wait to meet this challenge. I can't wait to see what happens to me once I reenter, because I feel like I'm so developed. I'm so confident. I can't wait to do what God has assigned me to do, because I feel like that I was chosen to do all this time to help bring about what you're bringing, combative solutions, so we can end this epidemic of mass incarceration. So leading up to my out date, I was just overly confident about really kind of showing people that you can do this much time and still be a productive citizen in society. And that's what I've been since I've been out.
How old are you?
I'm 52. I just turned 52.
And you look like you're 32.
Thank you.
So did you have any problems while you were in prison?
Oh yeah. I was from a small city. I was 160 pounds. I'm of a lighter hue. All that stuff plays into the environment that we call prison. And so, yeah, guys would pick on me to see where I was at. Is he going to defend himself? Is he going to allow somebody to take something from him? And I had to demonstrate, So, yeah, I got picked on a couple of times. But once people seen that he might be a little off, they kind of backed up off me. And then what happened, Michael, was guys just started to respect me because I carried myself with respect and dignity. So guys just left me alone and really kind of started looking up to me real early on.
And so you never got disciplinary infractions that sent you to higher security?
Yeah, I did get in trouble early on. I got caught a couple of times with marijuana paraphernalia in my locker. I think I got caught with a knife one time, but I never was transferred. I had caught 2 100 series shots in 1 year, and they told me one more shot, Mr. McAbee, and you go into a penitentiary.
Did it concern you about going to a penitentiary?
Not at all, because my name was good. People knew who I was, and I'm a man before anything else. So I felt like because my name was good, as far as the politics of being in prison, my name is good. And the fact that I'm not going to let nobody take nothing from me, I had no problem with ending up anywhere.
And so tell us about what it has been like to return to society for you after 26 years. Tell us, it's only been a year. What have you been doing?
It hasn't even been a year yet. It's almost a year.
The year in August, next month.
That's right.
It'll be 7 years for me next month.
Wow. Dang, 7 years.
And I'm going to tell you all about those 7 years because I don't know what you know about them. I'm only going for you right now.
Because I want to know too.
and I'm happy to reveal it all because I think this dialogue is really helpful as a teachable tool. But walk me through your first year, and then I'll tell you what my first year was like.
Okay. My first year has been very fruitful. It has been very productive. As soon as I went to the halfway house, which was 2.5 hours away from the city where I was to live, automatically I got a job in 2 weeks. I got a construction job as soon as I got to the halfway house in Michigan City. Never did construction my whole entire life. Mind you, I'm in my 50s now. I'm not a young sport. So I'm carrying 120-pound doors up dirt hills. But here's the thing. I knew coming home that opportunity cost.
What was the hourly wage they were paying you?
$10 an hour. $10 an hour. And it was grimy work. And I'm telling you, the guys talk crazy to you because they know that you're in a halfway house. They know that you are in a very sensitive situation. So the rest of the construction crew would talk crazy to the guys that were in the halfway house working for this construction company. But guess what, Michael? It didn't bother me at all because I did the development work inside the school of thought. This is to be expected. This is what I expected to happen. So I took it all with a grain of salt. I worked at the construction company. And when I left, because I had to go to Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is 2.5 hours from Michigan City, I had to go back to where I was going to be living. The boss of the company said, "You're one of the best workers that I've ever had. And I love your attitude." Now, this is a man who's talked crazy to me, but I never reacted to it in a negative way. And that is what the school of thought taught me when I was inside those type of institutions. So I left Michigan City, went to Fort Wayne, immediately got another job as a sales rep at Platinum Retail Marketing. I went from that job to another job, a better high-paying job, Trugreen. I went from that job to another job, UPS. And I went from UPS to the current job that I'm working now as at Sarbros and Sons, which is a pipe manufacturer. And people always ask me, how are you able to get all these jobs? Well, because again, I was put in a position that allowed me to develop myself at a very high level. And I know how to somewhat, to a certain extent, dictate perception. I understand that if I'm going to an interview, I'm in competition. And I have to put my best foot forward, and I have to speak articulate and in coherent ways that will convince the employer to hire me over everybody else. And I haven't looked back. So Michael, my point is, I've been having a ball. I've been working. I've been reconnecting with family members, and I've been just enjoying my life. And it's the simple things now that mean so much because I had all the big ticket items.
So let me so it hasn't even been a year. The first job was construction. How long were you on that job?
About 3 months.
3 months. Second job was and that was $10 an hour. Yeah. What was the second job?
It was a marketing job.
And marketing job. And what did you do there?
I pitched for different energy companies, different companies who were trying to sell products in big stores like Costco's or Walmart, and we would do these pitches for iTelephones or energy companies or whatever. So how was your compensation structured there? It was commission based with a base salary of $10 an hour.
Okay, and then the next job was UPS?
No, the next job was Trugreen, which was
what is that?
Excuse me?
What is a Trugreen?
That's a lawn care company. It's the biggest in the country, and they offer excellent benefits, $15 an hour, and then I went from there to UPS. What did you do there? Trugreen.
Yeah, what did you do at Trugreen?
Maintain people's lawns, will offer suggestions to make their lawns healthier, maintain them, treat them.
So you weren't selling, you were actually doing the maintenance of the lawn?
Yep, okay. They're doing the maintenance work.
And the next job?
That was UPS.
And what did you do at UPS?
I would package all of the packages into the mail trucks before they would leave.
They didn't object to you being formerly incarcerated?
No, they didn't.
So how did you get that job? How did you apply at UPS?
I applied just like I normally any other job. I applied through UPS actually electronically.
And how long were you at the marketing job again?
For about a month and a half.
And how long were you at Trugreen?
About another month.
And then UPS? About
a month or two.
And what were they paying?
$14.25. Okay. Part-time.
Okay. And the next one?
And now Shamba and Sons, where I'm at currently, pays $15.25.
What are they called?
Shamba and Sons.
And what do they do?
They are pipe manufacturer. They manufacture pipes for construction companies, sprinkler systems.
Big company or little company?
Big, huge.
Based in, where are you, in Chicago or
I'm
Michigan?
in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
In Indiana. And what does that job pay, you said?
Starting off at $15.25.
And what do you do there?
I fabricate pipes. I cut pipes. I transport pipes to different sections of the warehouse.
So I'm asking you these questions for a specific reason, is I want people inside to really grasp what you've just communicated. You have been able to walk your way into big companies and small companies, and you've been able to derive a level of satisfaction at $14, $15 an hour jobs. Where do you see yourself going with this type of employment, Govan?
Well, this type of employment is nothing but a stepping stone. Time is money, and I don't want to be spending my 50s and 60s on somebody else's time. I feel like I have a divine assignment. I feel like I'm obligated to be on these type of platforms to convey the type of information that can help the men and women who have been affected by the criminal justice system. So my point is, Michael, I am an entrepreneur by heart, but I understand that it's a process, and what I'm using these jobs for, basically. And I'm in a good situation because I really have no liabilities right now. I don't have a lot of debt. So the money that I'm getting is being invested into the things that I want to do on an entrepreneurship basis.
Can I ask, do you have a plan on how much money you're going to need to launch your entrepreneurial venture and how you expect to monetize it and get paid for it?
Well, that's why I'm talking to you.
Good. So now I guess we'll switch the channel and you could start asking me questions of how I did it.
Absolutely. So I want to hear you tell me what you did from year 1 to year 7.
Very good question. I tell you what, though, we've gone for about 30 minutes, I think, on this episode. So I'm going to pause this one, and we're going to do this in a 2-part series, maybe longer, to let people know this journey, because I would like nothing more than to kind of coach you on what I did and how it has worked for me, and even what I am doing right now. And if that makes sense to you, I think that we can both learn from each other, but we can also use this as a teachable tool so that other people can learn as well. Does that sound fair?
Oh, it sounds great.
Okay, so I'm Michael with Prison Professors, and we have just gone through an introductory episode with my friend Govan. Govan, do you have a contact information that if people want to reach out to you and hire you, how would they do it?
Yes, they can email me at McAbee, MCABEE, Govan, GOVAN, @gmail.com.
And do you have a website yet or anything like that?
No, I don't have a website, but you can contact me on my Facebook. You can just Govan McAbee, or you can contact me on Instagram, 8-digit click. That's an 8-digit click. Those are my platforms.
8-digit click, all as one word, correct?
Absolutely.
8, the number 8, DIGITCLICK. They can find you on Instagram that way, and they can find you on Facebook that way. Is that correct? On
Facebook, just my name, Govan McAbee, GOVAN.
Okay. I'm going to put links in the show notes below. So if any of our viewers want to reach out to Govan, it's going to be super simple to find him. And if you want to follow along with a series, I hope that you'll subscribe to the Prison Professors program, because I produce new content every day with hopes of teaching and inspiring people who are inside. And in our next episode, we're going to be talking about what I did, and I want to hear Govan's reaction to that. And then also I'll tell them about the news venture that I am doing, which is our sponsor, which you'll see below of this channel, is cbdtv.com. I want to help Govan understand how I'm using that to continue fulfilling my objectives of working to improve outcomes of the criminal justice system. So we'll be back right away with another episode.